Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Peter coming at you through the tubes of the internet. Today, taking a look at the latest release from Alkaline Trio, an album called Is This Thing Cursed? I'm excited to discuss and glad you could join.
Is this thing cursed? If it is, then I'm unsure.
Fast Facts.
Is This Thing Cursed? Released August 31st, 2018 via Epitaph Records, is the 9th studio LP from Chicago-based pop punkers Alkaline Trio. Alkaline Trio consists of 3 members. Dual vocalists Matt Skiba and Dan Andriano handle guitar and bass respectively, and they're joined by Derek Grant on drums.
Backstory.
Alkaline Trio are pop-punk veterans with over 2 decades as a band under their belt. During this time, their prolific outputs included 9 studio albums and a multitude of EPs and compilations, not to mention a range of solo and side projects undertaken by both Matt and Dan. Despite this long lifespan, the group's formulas remained relatively unchanged throughout. Catchy hooks coupled with hard-hitting punk instrumentation have long been staples for the group, who use macabre imagery and dark humor as distinguishing components of their lyricism. The emotional vocals performed by the dual songwriters often come across as therapeutic acts of catharsis. And those trends are still present on Is This Thing Cursed? Alkaline Trio stick to the tried and true formula, and for the most part manage to not sound like they're just going through the motions. The group revitalized some classic constructs to please the nostalgia trippers, and also dip a toe into newer territory with more upbeat instrumentation. Alkaline Trio have fine-tuned their grim lyricism and pop-punk intensity into an extremely solid late-career highlight.
Track-by-track analysis.
This release has 13 tracks and clocks in at 40 minutes. The band keeps the energy up for most of the runtime, so it breezes by. Though it's occasionally samey, the urgency of the instrumental pushes things forward throughout.
Track 1. Is This Thing Cursed?
Is this thing cursed? This goddamn thing's the worst.
On this opening cut, Dan finds himself tormented by a clingy MacGuffin he can't seem to shake. The haunted aesthetic this creates is the central conceit of the tune, and thematically it's Alkaline Trio through and through. The simple lyricism here lends an intentional ambiguity to the cursed object, and lets the listener ascribe whatever meaning they want to this jinx thing. Maybe a past relationship, the phone from the album cover, or the pull of the band drawing Dan back in. It's left open in a cool way. Musically, the tune starts with high and pretty plinking piano sounds before absolutely blasting off into overdriven rock instrumentation near the 1 minute mark. The tune holds nothing back when flipping this sonic switch, and the impact is visceral. The cut also uses the dual vocalist approach to the fullest. We hear Skiba join for the chorus before taking over the lead vocal completely to start the second verse. There just seems to be an urgency to get in on this track, and it's exciting to hear the band fully embrace their double singer setup. I absolutely love this track, and it shows the band diving back into a banger after a 5-year break. Great dynamics with both the heavy and soft elements perfectly executed, an exceptional opener.
Track 2. Blackbird.
She's black and red and built just like a spy plane.
Cut number 2 on the record's a classic Matt Femme Fatale tune. The spy plane metaphor is skillfully executed here in showing the overall sleekness of the Blackbird character and the sadistic pleasure she takes in tormenting her victims. Like an SR-71, she's a precursor to death and destruction, and Matt knows she's bad news but can't resist her magnetism. Gritty punk instrumentation meets super poppy vocals on the descending harmonies of the chorus, and these disparate elements complement each other perfectly. A rock-solid execution of a classic Alkaline Trio song construction.
Track 3. Demon and Division.
I got some poison on the brain and I'm not scared, I'm not ashamed.
The trio returned to shouting out Chicago landmarks on this tune named after a Windy City intersection, and it gives a hometowny, lived-in feel. A chill and surfy bass line gets pounced on by snappy snare hits and guitars during this track's spastic verses. They find Matt singing about missed opportunities, and there's a melancholy tone in the lyrics that discuss coming to terms with past regrets. Alkaline Trio certainly aren't reinventing the wheel here, but it's another catchy and enjoyable tune. Dan jumps on the second verse with a quick vocal delivery that keeps things fresh, and the hook sticky enough to carry this one the distance. Another goodie.
Track 4, Little Help.
Can anybody here buy this or fool a drink?
This tune jumps into rollicking upbeat instrumentation. It sounds a bit hokey, but actually ends up landing surprisingly well as the track progresses. What initially seems like a novelty drinking song goes further with the storytelling than I would have expected. The piece starts with Dan looking for a place to party, but ends up with them homeless in the gutter with the car stripped for parts. The character moves from goofy to pathetic quick, culminating with Dan almost begging the audience for a couch to crash on because he's hit rock bottom. A simple and quirky cut, but still pretty cool.
Track 5, I Can't Believe.
Reading into this track a bit, I get the impression it's about Matt not wanting to be lumped in with the right-wing political trend that let Trump rise to power. The phrase, I can't believe, or some slight variation, starts every verse line, and it seems to be a reflection on how we got ourselves into this ass-backwards mess as a country. The overuse of the word something at the end of the chorus is probably intentionally done to take a jab at regressive hand-wringing. Some nondescript scapegoat needs to be blamed for some nondescript problem. I think it's fairly effective, but in interviews discussing the record, Matt's referred to Trump as a sexist, rapist, fucking racist piece of shit, which is a well-articulated sentiment that I wish would have made it onto the record in a more direct way. As it stands here, the album's longest track comes off as a fairly repetitive offering, and a little more tepid than I would have preferred considering the subject matter. Not really one of my favorites.
Track 6, Sweet Vampires.
The story here seems to be about a partner who enters Matt's life like a whirlwind and burns out just as suddenly. The pair are head over heels, permeating each other's fast-paced lives until they're not. The idea of living and reigning together for eternity flips straight into the reality that they need to separate and cut all ties. And these extremes of infatuation or repulsion set up a nice contrast in the lyrics. No one element stands out as exceptional on this number, but it's another track that shows how well the trio nail their bread and butter arrangements on this release. A routine but enjoyable listen.
Track 7, Pale Blue Ribbon.
This is a quick 2-minute burst where Dan takes a stab at inspirational lyricism. He's come to terms with the concept that failure is a part of life and wants a listener to know it's okay to hurt. He discusses accepting a partner, warts and all, and wanting to see their real emotions rather than have them put on a fake veneer of happiness all the time. Dan's done similarly uplifting songs on the previous couple Alkaline Trio records, and I think the small dose offered here works pretty effectively. A good quick sidestep into a more positive message.
Track 8, Goodbye Fire Island.
Here a Lord of the Flies-esque fate befalls a group of rich, entitled fail sons and daughters, and Matt uses a cannibalism metaphor to craft a really interesting cut. Despite the mid-tempo instrumentals not doing much to elevate the tune, the lyrics are something truly unique, and the liberally used hey-yas throughout the song are infectious. The story's about a destination festival Matt was supposed to play on a tropical island with Blink-182, which was horrendously planned and abruptly cancelled, as Ja Rule and Co. left the wealthy concert-goers stranded. They came intending to steamroll the exotic locale with their extravagance and instead have to fight for basic survival in the story this song tells. It's really creepy when Matt refers to this event as a white meat festival, the way you might describe a barbecue rib cook-off or something. He's broken out the guillotine lyrically here, and it's exciting to hear him cut loose, reveling with the listener and watching Fire Island and its new inhabitants burn to the ground. Very cool.
Track 9, Stay.
Let's try to crawl out from under our breath. We can never break up, so I love you to death. The man I'd be called.
Here Dan expresses his desire to put off being upset in a relationship. He knows he's been disappointing his partner and things are lukewarm at best between them, but he wants to take it one step at a time and see if they can make it work sticking together. By a minute into this song, things have become upbeat as can be. Dan grabs a John Denver-esque vocal melody for the chorus, and it's bubblegummy fun. Probably the track that deviates furthest from Alkaline Trio's usual MO for its sheer poppiness, but yet it still works. Dan seems to drop some Easter eggs with callbacks to previous trio material to keep things on brand, and the band pull this one off well.
Track 10, Heart Attacks.
The story Matt tells here maybe takes a look at the family and friends left to mourn the loss of a drug overdose victim. The wording used is really dark and evocative, describing a dad who can't stop puking and a mom lashing out at inanimate objects around her. It's sad subject matter, but the chorus wordplay is super lively. Little folksy turns of phrase and tightly intricate melodies give this thing a ton of personality. And the way this synergizes with the percussive elements is exceptional. Big time shouts out to Derek here, whose galloping drums towards the end of the tune take it to the next level rhythmically. I think this is one of Alkaline Trio's danciest tracks ever, and they land it perfectly.
Track 11, Worn So Thin.
I'll start out fresh, a brand new beginning.
Once again, this song finds Dan at a point where his apologies have become meaningless due to overuse, similar to Stay a couple tracks ago. He has grievances to air, but it seems the people around him are tired of hearing them. I think overall this song itself's a touch tired. The shortcut right under my skin line didn't land hard for me, and I feel like it's pretty rote stuff. Dan nails some all-time tunes elsewhere on this release, and I don't think this one can hang with them.
There's a shortcut right under my skin, and all I want is to freak out.
Track 12, Throw Me to the Lions.
I'm in the trouble keeping focus, craving dull feature love from the gods of
Here, Matt's craving masochistic stimulation. He and his partner are having trouble feeling anything, so he wants pain to snap him out of it. The lyricism here just nails so many witty turns of phrase during the verses. Raining cats and dogs of locusts, craving double feature love. My favorite's probably requesting that his partner completely turn off all empathy and interact with him in a cold and clinical way. The imagery is perfect. The track instructs the listener to listen for the screams and then belt out a towering Groot backup vocal to show what they mean. There's also long guitar slides and even a sampled shriek during the instrumental breaks to drive this point home. It's a cool interplay between the lyrics and all those different audio representations of the scream they've mentioned. Alkaline Trio have a gift for making sick and demented subject matter like this fun to listen to, and they've certainly done that here.
Track 13, Krystalline.
Never said what I was thinking the night you turned up at my door.
Stripped down simplicity as Matt ends this release on a narrative acoustic cut. In his tale, long-lost lovers reunite and rekindle an old spark. The characters just seem happy and content with each other. They have nice and pleasant interactions, and that's that. It's such a great ending to the album and brings a nice closure after all the doom and gloom up to this point. All the band had to do to introduce some new themes this late in the runtime was drop in a little joyous content. A great closer.
Verdict.
Overall, I just appreciate that Alkaline Trio's feeling no obligation to be anything other than themselves and letting the hits rip on this release. The group don't attempt anything too ambitious or groundbreaking, but they have an incredible command of their niche and they drive these tunes home. Practice is made perfect with their lyricism and instrumental approach and their prose. For that reason, I'm going to give this record a score of 8.5 out of 10, and I think the group have really delivered on what longtime fans have been clamoring for, and also crafted a record that stands on its own as a great work.
You called in sick to work and then we did it all again. My Krystalline.
So that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on the record. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the release, my critique, or the review format in general. Making this is a lot of work, but also fun and definitely worth it if it helps some people wrap their head around the record. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.
It's a series of tubes.